My name is Layla. I am from Egypt. I came to the United States when I was 24 years old. Before that, I lived in Cairo with my parents and 2 sisters. My family was kind and close. We had a small house, but we had big dreams. I wanted to be a writer. I loved stories, I loved books, and I loved words. But there was one big problem. I only knew Arabic. I studied some English in school, but I never spoke it. I could say hello, thank you, and a few small sentences. I was always afraid that I would say something wrong. I was afraid people would laugh at me. So I stayed quiet. When I arrived in the USAS, everything felt big and strange. The airport was loud. The signs were all in English. People spoke fast. I didn't understand. My heart beat fast. I was afraid. I held my bag tightly. I kept thinking, how will I live here? How will I talk to anyone? I didn't have many friends in the USAS. I came alone on a student visa. I got a small apartment near the university. It was quiet, sometimes too quiet. I missed home. I missed Arabic. I missed the sound of my sisters talking and my mother cooking in the kitchen. But most of all, I missed feeling like I belonged somewhere. At the university, I joined an English class for international students. On the first day, I was so nervous. My hands were cold. My heart was heavy. I walked into the room slowly. There were students from different countries: Korea, Brazil, France, and Turkey. Everyone looked as scared as I felt. The teacher came in. She was smiling. Her name was Miss Carol. She wore a yellow sweater and blue jeans. Her voice was soft, but strong. She looked at all of us and said, "Welcome. You are safe here." Her words were simple, but they touched me. For the first time since arriving in America, I felt a little calm. Miss Carol asked us to say our names. When it was my turn, I stood up. My voice was shaking. I said, "My name is Layla. I am from Egypt." My face felt hot, but Miss Carol smiled at me. She said, "Nice to meet you, Layla." I sat down quickly, but in my heart, I felt proud. I spoke English in front of people, and nothing bad happened. The class was simple. We talked about our daily lives. We spoke in pairs. We practiced saying things like, "Where are you from?" and "What do you like to eat?" It was slow, and it was hard sometimes. I made mistakes. I forgot words. I said funny things. But Miss Carol never laughed. She listened. She corrected us kindly. She always said, "Mistakes mean you are learning." One day, after class, I stayed to speak with her. I said, "I want to speak better. I want to write. But I am scared." She looked at me and said something I never forgot. "Layla," she said, "you don't have to be perfect. You only have to be brave." Her words felt like light in a dark room. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to be brave. So I started to do small things every day. I spoke to the woman at the grocery store. I asked the bus driver about the stops. I even asked a classmate to have coffee after class. Every time I used English, even a little, I felt stronger. Miss Carroll taught us in a special way. We did not use heavy textbooks. She gave us short stories, easy poems, and small videos. She said, "English is not just grammar. It is feeling. It is life. You have to live it." She showed us how to learn through reading, speaking, and listening. She taught us something called shadowing. She said, "Listen to a sentence in English. Then repeat it. Try to sound like the speaker. Do it many times." At first it felt strange. I played a video and spoke at the same time. But slowly, I saw change. My mouth moved faster. My tongue was not afraid anymore. It was like music. Copy, repeat, copy, repeat. It helped. Another thing she said was, "Think in English. Speak out loud when you are alone. Say what you are doing. Say what you see." It felt funny at first. I walked around my room saying, "I am making tea. The water is hot. I like tea." I laughed at myself. But it helped. The more I spoke, the less afraid I felt. My English was not perfect, but I was using it. It was alive inside me. That was the most important part. At home, I watched children's shows. I paused and repeated sentences. I wrote new words in a small notebook. I carried it everywhere. I even spoke to myself in the mirror. "Hello, my name is Layla. I am from Egypt. I like books. I want to learn English." I said it every day. I began to dream in English. I began to think in English. It became part of me. But not everything was easy. One day, I went to the doctor's office. I needed to ask a question, but I forgot the words. The nurse looked busy. I felt small. I wanted to cry. I stood there in silence. My heart was beating fast. Then I remembered Miss Carroll's voice. "You only have to be brave." So I took a breath. I said slowly, "I don't speak English well. Can you help me?" The nurse looked at me and smiled. "Of course," she said. "You're doing fine." I smiled too. It was a small win, but it meant so much to me. After 1 month, I was speaking more. My classmates noticed. They asked, "Layla, how are you learning so fast?" I said, "I practice every day. I speak out loud. I watch easy videos. I read small stories. And I make mistakes." They laughed. They said, "We want to learn like you." I told them about shadowing and thinking aloud. We started doing it together. After class, we walked to the park and talked in English. We made mistakes. We helped each other. It was fun. I was not fluent yet. I still made mistakes, but I was not afraid anymore. That was the biggest change. Fear kept me quiet, but practice gave me a voice. Miss Carroll helped me believe in myself. She always said, "Your voice matters. Use it." Before I share the rest of my story, I need to know, where are you listening from? Knowing someone hears me, understands me, gives me strength. The more I practiced, the more I believed in myself. I started doing small things that I never thought I could do. I joined the library near my apartment. The woman at the desk asked, "How can I help you?" I smiled and said, "I want to read English books." "Easy ones, please." She smiled back and showed me a shelf of books for beginners. I picked a small story book with pictures. It was called Anna's New Job. I read it slowly at home. I read the same page 5 times, but I liked it. I understood more every time. I underlined new words and said them out loud. The story was about a girl who came to a new city. She was scared, but she found her way. I felt like Anna. Her story was also my story. One day in class, Miss Carroll asked us to talk about our dreams. "What do you want to do in the future?" she said. Everyone spoke about jobs, family, and travel. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath. I said, "I want to be a writer. I want to write stories in English." Some students looked surprised. I felt nervous, but Miss Carroll smiled. She said, "That's a beautiful dream, Layla, and I believe you can do it." Her words gave me hope. That day, I went home and opened a notebook. I started writing small things in English. Just a few lines. Today it rained. I stayed home. I made tea and read a book. That was my first journal entry. My grammar was not perfect, but I didn't care. I was writing in English. I was using my voice. Every morning I walked to school. It took 20 minutes. During the walk, I spoke out loud. I said what I saw. The trees are green. The cars are fast. I feel cold today. People looked at me sometimes, but I didn't stop. It helped me think in English. It helped me feel more natural. In class, I started answering more questions. I stopped worrying about mistakes. Miss Carroll always said, "It's better to try and be wrong than to stay silent and never grow." I remembered that when I wanted to hide. After a few weeks, something special happened. Miss Carroll asked me to help a new student. Her name was Sora. She came from South Korea. She was shy and quiet, just like I was in the beginning. She spoke very little. Miss Carroll said, "Layla, can you help her feel more comfortable?" I said yes. That afternoon, I sat next to Sora. I smiled and said, "It's okay." I was afraid too. Sora looked at me with big eyes. She nodded a little. I asked her simple questions. "Do you like coffee? What is your favorite color?" She smiled and said, "Blue." "And tea?" I laughed. Me too, I said. That was the start of our friendship. Sora and I started studying together. We watched English cartoons. We read short stories and spoke about them. We went to the supermarket and practiced words like milk, bread, and receipt. We even tried to write small stories. I felt proud helping someone else. It made me feel strong. I was not just learning. I was growing. I was becoming someone new. One evening, Miss Carroll showed us a video of a woman giving a speech. The woman had a strong accent, but she spoke clearly. She talked about learning English as an adult. She said, "It's not about sounding perfect. It's about being brave enough to speak." That line stayed in my heart. I watched that video again and again. I copied her voice. I did shadowing with her speech. I said every word she said at the same time. It helped me so much. My mouth felt faster. My English felt smoother. Then came a big moment. Miss Carroll told us, "Next week, each of you will give a small talk. Just 2 minutes. You will tell us about your life or your dream." My hands got cold. My stomach felt tight. I had never spoken in front of a class, but I knew I had to try. I wanted to be that brave woman, so I prepared. I wrote my speech. I read it many times. I practiced in front of the mirror. I practiced in front of Sora. I did shadowing with myself. I recorded my voice and listened. I corrected small things. I didn't want it to be perfect. I just wanted it to be real. The day came. I stood in front of the class. My hands were shaking. My voice was soft. But I spoke. "My name is Layla. I came from Egypt. When I arrived, I was afraid. I could not speak English. I stayed silent. But now I am learning. I am trying. I want to write stories in English. One day, I will. Thank you." The room was quiet. Then my classmates clapped. Miss Carroll smiled and said, "Well done, Layla. You spoke from your heart." I sat down and felt something new. I felt strong. I felt seen. I was not the girl who was too scared to speak anymore. I was becoming the woman who had something to say. Later that day, Miss Carroll came to me. She said, "Layla, would you like to join our school's speaking club?" I didn't know what to say. She explained, "It's a small group. We meet once a week. We practice speaking. No grade, just conversation." I said yes. I was still afraid, but I said yes. The first meeting of the club was small. 5 students and 1 teacher. We sat in a circle and talked about food, music, and dreams. I spoke slowly. I made some mistakes, but no one laughed. Everyone listened. I felt safe. I felt happy. As the weeks passed, I started to feel like I belonged. The bus driver smiled when I said good morning. The cafe worker knew my name and my order. I joined a writing class at the local library. It was in English. It was not easy, but I tried. The teacher there helped me with grammar. She said, "Your ideas are beautiful. Let's work on the words together." At home, I still missed my family. I still felt lonely some days. But now, I could call my parents and say, "I spoke English today. I helped someone. I am learning." My mother cried happy tears. She said, "I am proud of you, Habibti." Those words filled my heart. One Sunday, I wrote a story about my first day in America. I wrote it in English. It was short, just 2 pages. I showed it to Miss Carroll. She read it and said, "Layla, you are already a writer." I laughed, but her words stayed with me. Maybe it was true. Maybe I could become what I dreamed. One day, something special happened. Miss Carroll told me, "Layla, I shared your story with the head teacher. She wants to meet you." I felt nervous. I asked, "Why?" Miss Carroll said, "She thinks your story can help other students. She wants you to speak at the welcome class for new learners." My heart started beating fast. Speak? In front of new students? Me? I wanted to say no. I wanted to hide. But something inside me said, "Say yes." So I took a deep breath and said, "Okay, I will try." That night, I could not sleep. I kept thinking about my first days in the USA, how I stood in silence, how I was afraid to ask for help. I thought about Miss Carroll's words, "You don't have to be perfect. You only have to be brave." I wrote down my thoughts. I wrote my journey from fear to hope. I practiced saying it aloud. I did shadowing with my own voice. I stood in front of the mirror and practiced again and again. The day of the welcome class came. I wore my favorite shirt and put on a small necklace from home. It reminded me of my mother. I walked into the classroom. There were new students, just like I had been before. Some looked shy. Some looked tired. I saw myself in their eyes. Miss Carroll introduced me. "This is Layla. She was once in your seat. Now she wants to share something with you." I stood up. My hands were cold, but my voice was steady. I said, "Hello. My name is Layla. I am from Egypt. I came here with fear. I could not speak English. I was silent, but now I speak. I read. I write. You can too. Speak every day. Make mistakes. Don't be afraid. English is not about being perfect. It is about trying. It is about connection." The room was quiet. Then, one by one, the students smiled. A few clapped. A woman from China said, "Thank you. You give me hope." I smiled back. For the first time, I felt like I had a voice, not just in English, but in life. I was not just learning the language. I was becoming someone new. I was no longer the girl who was afraid to speak. A few weeks later, Sora came to me. She said, "Layla, I want to write a story. Like you." I smiled and said, "Let's write together." We started meeting at the library. We read small books. We wrote in our notebooks. We helped each other with grammar and spelling. Sometimes we laughed at our funny mistakes. Sometimes we cried when we wrote about home. But we never gave up. One day Sora wrote, "I used to feel invisible. Now I feel brave." I hugged her. I understood those words so well. Miss Carroll told me about a small contest at the library. It was for international students who wanted to share their stories. She said, "Layla, you should enter." I was unsure. My English still had errors. But she looked at me with that same soft smile and said, "Your story matters." So I wrote my story. I called it The Day I Spoke. I printed it, put it in a folder, and submitted it. 1 month later, I got an email. I had won second place. I could not believe it. I read the message again and again. I ran to school and showed Miss Carroll. She cried. "You did it, Layla," she said. "You are a writer now." That night, I sat by my window. The street below was quiet. The stars were bright. I thought about my life. I was still far from home. I still missed my family. But I was not lost anymore. I was found. My world changed because one teacher believed in me. Because she said, "Speak even if you are scared." Because she showed me simple ways to learn, reading stories, thinking aloud, shadowing voices, using English in life. She didn't just teach me English. She helped me find myself again. After that, I started helping new students more often. I met girls who were afraid, boys who never spoke, older women who said, "I am too old to learn." And I told them, "It is never too late." I showed them how to speak slowly, how to listen closely, how to use simple words, and how to grow a little more each day. I told them, "Your voice is not broken. It just needs time." Months passed. Seasons changed. My English became stronger. One day, I went to a job interview. It was for a part-time job at the library. I sat in front of the manager. She asked me questions. I answered with small, clear sentences. I said, "I love books. I love helping people. I learned English here. I want to help others too." She smiled and said, "We'd be lucky to have you." I got the job. Now I work in that library. I help people find books. I talk to them about easy stories and learning English. Sometimes I see a new student walk in, nervous and quiet. I smile and say, "Hi, how can I help you?" And I remember that girl I once was, the girl who sat in silence on a train, the girl who didn't understand the words, the girl who was afraid to speak. That girl still lives inside me, but she is not afraid anymore. She is learning. She is growing. She is speaking. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. More emotional and inspiring stories are coming soon.